Can you please add one sentence to exempt pedophilia or minor attracted persons from an evolving sexuality? And they refuse to do it. In colleges is leading workshops on BDSM, how to strangle somebody erotically without hurting them or killing them.
Really?
Yes. It tells kids, this is what it says, step by step. Number 1, upload a tiny picture of yourself to the app. Number 2, the app works out your location. Number 3, the app tells you who the nearest homosexuals are. Number 4, you then chat with them. Number 5, because they are near, it's easy to meet up with them. I said, why is this in the Knowledge Mobile? And he said, I'm getting pressured by commissioners and politicians. And then I found out that my union is actually the one pushing this into our schools. The National Educators Association, the California Teachers Association, this is on the banned book list. This is one of the books that they're telling kids, read a banned book week. I mean, we have books in our school district that goes into very deep descriptions on incest. If a child says they think they're a different gender after reading these books, they can go see a counselor without the parent knowing it. And that gender can be affirmed. It doesn't matter if that kid has high-level autism, and I've seen it done. Their inborn identity, which would be their gender, their name, their pronouns, could be erased at school without parent knowledge. If that child does come up missing, how is that parent going to find that child? They are using the suicide hotline as an indoctrination tool to normalize all of these genders. They had a gay men's club, but the tagline was, let's talk about boys. The Trevor space, this whole suicide prevention and how they are using this as a cover-up for something that I believe is using our schools as a pipeline to human trafficking. I spoke at the National Educators Association. They let me speak, but when I brought up the Trevor Project, the president, Becky Pringle, cut me off immediately. The Trevor Project is a sacred cow. You cannot touch it.
This episode is very disturbing, although it's very much needed. It has only two ways. It's either going to be suppressed, demonetized, and censored, or it is going to be even banned from this platform. That's why I'm asking you for a small favor. Please like this video right now, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that already. Number 2, please leave a comment below. And number 3, right now, take the link to this podcast and share it with your friends and peers. It's very important to me. Thank you. And now let's get back to this very important and pretty disturbing episode. Let me give you a proper introduction. So Brenda Lebsack has been in public education for 25 years. She has a Bachelor of Science in Human Services from Cal State Fullerton University, a teaching credential from San Jose State University, and MA in Special Education from Chapman University, California, and an adapted PE authorization from Azusa Pacific University. Lots of diplomas, right? Brenda has taught alternative education, elementary education, middle school and high school special education, and is currently teaching adapted physical education. She was elected as school board member for Orange Unified School District from 2016 to 2020. She coached girls high school soccer and field hockey. Brenda has been married to Dr. Mark Lebsack for 34 years, and they have 2 grown children, a son-in-law and a grandchild. Before going into education, Brenda was a peace officer for the Orange County Probation Department and helped write the AIDS prevention curriculum. Brenda is still a teacher in high school, and she fights against children grooming, their indoctrination, and keeping secrets from their parents. Mrs. Lebsack is a woman of God. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Paulo.
So I would like to address this podcast to the parents that are already parents that have children, right? To the future parents that are about to become parents, maybe 1, 2, or 3 years, because I believe. So I'm 36. So I graduated school 17 to 18 years ago. So I have no idea what school is like even back in my home country. Mm-hmm. So obviously I have no idea what school is like here in the U.S. too. So I would like to start with just in general school system and how does it look like, and let's start with this. So what are the main things that parents that have kids right now, that their kids are 5 to 6 to 7 years old, have no idea what school system in the US is like? This is, for instance, next year or this year, the first year that they are about to go to school with their kids. What do you have no idea about?
Well, let me just back up a little bit in that because we have I went to college and I got my training back in the 80s. So things were a lot different then than they are now. And what they're trying to do is really push out the older teachers who have the older training and bring in the new, because the newer teachers have been through more of an indoctrination process through the colleges with critical race theory and with a lot of these woke theories normalizing all these genders. And a lot of younger teachers, they'll use the pronouns under their names, and then they'll ask kids what their pronouns are, like the first day of school. This is more typical with the younger teachers, not with the older teachers. So you're going to have a mixture in the schools. It's just that our teachers union definitely incentivizes all of this parent betrayal and gender indoctrination and a lot of the critical race theory and things like that. So that's what's being incentivized, and that's also what's being incentivized through our state government. So because of that, these very radical teachers pushing social justice and using students for political purposes are feeling very empowered to do what normally you would not think should be done in a classroom.
Give me a few examples. So social justice, or how do they use students in school?
So using kids, even sometimes paying kids through the city government to teach them how to advocate for political causes, which would be, they call it reproductive rights, such as abortion. It would be trans rights. It would be Black Lives Matter. But Black Lives Matter, they call it all kinds of things. Economic justice, which is basically communism. And it is, trans rights is, I don't like to use the word trans, to be honest, because really when you look at our data forms, like I'm a special ed teacher, and if you go to our special ed forms that we fill out, we have gender drop downs. We have male, female, and non-binary. And non-binary is basically an umbrella term for unlimited gender choices. And that's what I'm seeing in the curriculum, and that's what I saw a while back, where they would just say, oh, there's 3 genders. That law got passed, I think, back in 2017.
3.
Yes, that law was passed.
Male, female, non-binary.
Yes, but it's really not a third gender. Non-binary is like, they say it's an umbrella term. So it would be like calling Baskin-Robbins an ice cream flavor, because Baskin-Robbins is really 31 flavors or more. And this is how they manipulate language to deceive. So we see, and I have some examples here of what's being taught to 5-year-olds and what's being poured into our school libraries and into the classroom. Basically telling kids, like this one says, it feels good to be yourself. And we have here where it says, you might feel like a boy. You might feel like a girl. You might feel like both boy and girl, or like neither. You might feel like your gender changes from day to day or from year to year. And this is for preschool through 2nd graders.
That's in high school, in the school system.
These are in my schools. I work in 7 schools as an adaptive PE teacher. So this is in most of my schools. My district has 60 schools, and it's in the majority of our elementary schools. You'll also see it in the public libraries.
And teachers have to teach upon those books.
Well, what's going on right now is we have something called community schools. And this is where many outside agencies are working with our kids. So this is to bypass even teachers. And then we also have a lot of kind of like canned learning where it's coming from the state through our Chromebooks. So it pretty much has the lessons ready to go, and the teacher just becomes a facilitator. So they just kind of click a button and put on the headphones, and this is the lesson that they're getting, kind of like online learning, but inside a classroom. And so like social emotional learning, they're required to give 10 minutes of that a day, but they're always asking questions to the kids, and the questions become more and more invasive about personal. Well, they're collecting data on our kids.
For example, what kind of questions?
They might ask about gender, or about what your family believes, or how your family, or does your family, do they carry guns? Do they have guns in the home? Do your parents drink alcohol? Do your parents take drugs? What are their belief systems?
Well,
or their religious beliefs?
Well, in regards to drugs or alcohol, maybe those are good questions.
Yes.
But the guns or the religious beliefs, it's not your business.
Right. They get very personal in some of these things. I'm an adaptive PE teacher, so I'm not really one that is working with this social emotional learning because I don't have to do that. But I can kind of...
Social emotional learning.
Yes, that's
a fancy word.
Required. It's 10 minutes, and usually it's like a package that's bought and from the state, and then they just implement it. Or sometimes the teachers might, give the lesson themselves. But they're always asking them, how do you feel? Are you feeling sad? Are you feeling happy? That's a big part of it.
So does anything change whether the kid says, I feel sad, or my parents do drugs or alcohol, or they just collecting the data and nothing happens?
I really don't know. I don't know all those answers. I do know a lot about the crisis hotlines, and that would probably be something I would like to share information about.
Let's go. Crisis hotlines. What is that?
Let me tell you the story.
Okay.
Basically, when I saw these books coming in, here's just one example, but when I was a board member, I started looking at things from the California Department of Education, and I saw that in the health framework and in the ethnic studies framework, these are like blueprints that the state board passes that gives these blueprints to the curriculum writers so that we can have state-approved curriculum. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I just saw big red flags because I saw that in both of those frameworks, they were talking about gender and sexuality being defined as ever expansive and ever evolving. So that pretty much gives yourself, that's the plus. It gives it an empty check, a blank check to be whatever, right? So there was a 60-day community input process for the state before they actually voted at the state board. And so when I saw that, I asked them in writing, and I said, can you please add one sentence to exempt pedophilia or minor attracted persons from an evolving sexuality? And they refused to do it.
Why?
Well, I think we know why. Because that's what's at our doorstep.
They didn't give you any explanation?
They did not give an explanation. They just denied my request. And I gave it twice. I also gave it during the ethnic studies. They also had a framework. And so I, again, saw the exact same wording for how they define LGBTQIA+. And again, it was ever evolving, ever expansive sexualities and genders. So I again asked, please exempt pedophilia or MAP, minor attracted persons, as a future sexuality. And they refused to do it.
So that was a conspiracy theory a year ago. When people were saying like they're trying to get pedophilia as a sexual orientation, people were laughing at that. That was a conspiracy theory, but which is not.
It is no conspiracy at all. Why
so
wouldn't
they...
they...
be straight, gay, lesbian, or a pedophile. MAP, right? Minor attracted person.
Correct. I mean, that's not there yet, but I feel like everything that's going on is really bringing us to that point. It's incremental, but it's going quite fast right now. So the other thing I noticed when I was a board member, this was back in 2018, when we were part of this community input process, because I was I'm from a very Hispanic area, an immigrant
Excuse me, 2018, prior to Gavin Newsom getting into office or after that? Because he was elected in 2018 for the first term, right? That was 2018. Yeah, 2022 he got reelected.
Yes.
This is his last term. So even prior to Gavin Newsom, were the things in California?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yes, for sure. Yes, because Brown was in, Governor Brown. Mm-hmm. So this has been, very incremental from some of our laws going from 2015, 16, 17. But what I saw also during this 60-day community input process, I was speaking in many Spanish churches to let them know what's going on. And I asked them, please be part of this community input process and go ahead and email what you think. You can email it in Spanish. Well, they said, we need the framework in our language, in Spanish. So I contacted the California Department of Ed and I said, can you please provide the framework, the draft in Spanish? And they said, no, we only have it in English. I was floored. I couldn't believe this was happening in my state, especially one that says they're so inclusive and non-discriminatory. So I filed a complaint, and I asked many of my friends to also file a complaint who were either Arabic or Korean or Hispanic, because they wouldn't provide it in any language but English, when we're a very diverse state. And then they denied it, even though I had very good reasons. And so we appealed it. We went to the Office of Civil Rights. I think we sent it to Seattle. They denied it. We appealed it, sent it to San Francisco, and they denied it. It's just, to me, it's such hypocrisy. It's incredible hypocrisy. So that they actually excluded all the immigrants in California from the community input process.
Especially in Southern California.
Oh, yes.
Lots of immigrants.
Yes.
Lots of Latinos.
Absolutely.
Mexican.
So I just, all of these things just started unraveling. And so my story with these books, there's more books as well. I can show you this one. The Human Rights Campaign partners with the California Teachers Association. And this is a preschool book, They, She, He, Me, Free to Be, ! And it just normalizes, if you see, they're teaching kids what pronouns. These are the people that go with he pronouns. And you'll see a lot of the people that look like women.
Yeah.
Now, these are the people that go with Z or tree pronouns.
Who are those?
These are non-binary.
But why they are called tree and Z? What's the letter for? That's not the Z letter, right?
Yeah, Z-E, yes, it's spelled Z-E. This is non-binary if you don't want to be identified as if you're neither gender or you're something else.
A tree.
Apparently so. And this is what it says here. Creating pronouns. That's the name of it. It says, you can change pronouns from he to she or she to he. You can use new ones like Z or create your own like tree.
Okay.
I'm not kidding
Please
you.
continue.
This is no joke. Some people use they, which is a perfect way. There are many more pronouns waiting to be discovered and used.
And that's called science, right? Is that scientific?
This is... Well, I don't think so, but
they're saying trust the science.
Oh, absolutely.
So this is the new science.
Correct.
The new religion of science.
It is, yes.
Okay.
And they are using it to, I believe, brainwash very young kids that are impressionable, that are innately imaginative, and it's doing this behind parents' backs because parents, like you as an adult, think this is hilarious, right? But yet
comedy.
A child who doesn't know any better and who trusts their teacher's authority would just say, oh, okay, and accept it as truth. Yes, so we do have, here's one here. Let's see. It says... I'm sorry, I am a girl, I am a boy, I'm both, I'm neither, or I'm just me. And you'll see these kids here. This is like a 3-year-old, maybe a 4-year-old, 8-year-old. These are very small children. This page says, for some people, there are many more choices than just 2 for gender. These are just a few words people use. Trans, genderqueer, non-binary, gender fluid, transgender, gender neutral, agender, neutroi, bigender, third gender, two-spirit, and there are even more words people are using to describe their experience. This is called the gender spectrum.
This is called clown world.
It's extremely confusing for children. So when I saw these books coming in to our kindergarten, classrooms and into the library, I thought this could really create confusion and a mental crisis. So I noticed in our bathrooms that there were these metallic posters bolted into every student bathroom starting in kindergarten, giving the National Suicide Hotline, the Trevor Project, which is an LGBT suicide hotline, and a bully hotline. And so I thought, and it was on my 5-year-old level, okay, very low. And I thought, I'm going to text this hotline and pretend to be a kid and see what they say. So I texted the National Suicide Hotline, which is 988, and I said, I'm unsure of my gender. I'm scared about puberty. What should I do? Now, of course, they made sure that I wasn't going to commit suicide. So they asked all the proper questions. But then they wanted to know my age, but I didn't give it. And then they said, well, you're not going to commit suicide, so we see that you just need to explore your gender because you're confused. So they sent me a text, and I screenshot all of this, which was the Trevor Project. And then they sent me a Trevor space text. And they said, this is where you can go to explore your gender in a safe place. So I did exactly what they told me to do. But right after I got off the phone, they sent me a survey. And this survey gave me 11 genders to choose from, or I could name my own. So I'm like, wow, they are using the suicide hotline as an indoctrination tool to normalize all of these genders.
5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds, first graders, right?
Well, they had an age survey too. And the age survey started from 0 to 10. So it's obvious they are planning this for these young kids to be using these suicide hotlines.
What do you think is their end goal?
Well, let me go on with my story, and then I'll tell you what I think their end goal is, okay? So as I followed their directives, I went to trevorspace.org, and I would encourage any of your listeners to do what I did. Of course, I didn't talk on the phone because I don't sound like a 5 or 6 or 7 or 8-year-old. I did everything by text. That way I could screenshot it. So when I went to trevorspace.org, it said it was for 13 to 24-year-olds. And by the way, I have all the screenshots on my website, brendaforkids.com with the number 4, Brenda for Kids.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And when I went to it, first of all, I thought 13 to 24-year-olds, they're mixing minors with adults.
Yeah, 24-year-olds.
That's a red flag, right? So I made up an email, and I put in a date of birth that reflected a 13-year-old, and I got in a matter of seconds. I'm in my 50s. So what that tells me is random adults, unvetted adults, can have access to these chat spaces with kids that are supposed to be exploring their gender and sexuality, okay, in the Trevor space. When I went in, I saw alarming chat spaces. I didn't have any conversations with kids, but I saw kids talking. I'm assuming they were kids, but some were saying, I'm lonely and need a friend. I saw a lot of that. I'm lonely and need a friend. And somebody would pop in and say, I'll be your friend, hugs, hugs.
And what year was that? Prior to the pandemic?
No, it was after the pandemic.
After. Because pandemic caused a lot of loneliness.
Correct. Then I saw chat spaces like The Chosen Family. So we'll be a new family if your parents don't agree with this. That's what cults do. They had the Witchcraft Club. They had non-binary pals. They had the Furries Club, pretend to be an animal. Yeah. They had Guilt and Secrets Club, share your secrets with us. They had the Regressor Space, which is age identity. Means that you can be a 50-year-old man and say that you're a 16-year-old girl.
What?
That's age identity. Regressors, you're going to regress to a different age, a younger age.
You're a 50-year-old man, pretend to be and feel like you're a 16-year-old boy.
Correct.
And
a
you
regressor.
want to date another 16-year-old girl.
Right.
That's called pedophilia.
Yes.
Please continue.
They had a gay men's club, but the tagline was, let's talk about boys.
Gay men's club.
That said, let's talk about boys in the tagline. This is what I saw. And so I would encourage anyone to do what I did and go in there and look at it for yourself because you'll see it. And then I saw this one thing I found alarming, and I wrote an article about it. It said, ask Sam Brinton anything. So Sam Brinton is someone who helped in 2019. He was one of the executors of Trevor Project, and then he was hired in, I think, 2021 to be Biden's nuclear waste executive director.
How does that align?
I don't know. It's bizarre, but that's true. You can Google it, and it's all there. He was fired a year later because he had a felony of stealing women's luggage out of airports.
That's the guy. Oh, man.
That's Sam Brinton. Yes. He's
Look, why?
Yes, he goes by the pronoun of they, and he says he's non-binary. He's part of the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, the drag queens. So, but think about this. He is the one on Trevor Space that is the guru, mentor for the kids. So kids are sending him questions, and then he comes up with these videos and answers their questions. And this is a man who, or woman, whatever you want to call him, they, them, who in colleges is leading workshops on BDSM, how to strangle somebody erotically without hurting them or killing them.
Really?
Yes. Yes. I wrote articles about him. So this is the guy, the person who is giving sex advice to the kids on Trevor Space, and that they're looking up to as just this amazing person. He's telling them how to come out to their parents. His parents supposedly were Baptist missionaries.
And no one bats an eye that he's doing that.
I don't know. I've tried everything I can to expose this, and it's still there. What I did is I told my community. I did turn it in to the police, and I had my community expose it. We took big posters and showed these different chat spaces, and we brought it out in Spanish so, our community would be alerted about this. And then Pacific Justice Institute wrote a letter. I brought some lawyers in on this to say that this is a liability issue for the district. The district did in April 2023, removed all of the metallic posters out of the bathrooms. However, you'll still see it on our website, Trevor Project, because Trevor Project is literally used they use all of Trevor Project statistics to justify deceiving parents for like AB 1955, the identity support plan, so kids can transition in school without parent knowledge or consent. So if you read any of Attorney General Bonta's letters, or any of Newsom, or even Rachel Levin, the Secretary of State for Human Services, they all
Rachel Levin is a man pretending to be a woman, right?
Correct. Yes, she's the transgender Secretary of Health for our nation under Biden. So
health.
Correct.
Keyword.
Secretary of Health, yes. And so they all always promote and use Trevor Project as their statistics and their justification for all these policies to deceive parents, saying that Trevor Project is the expert on suicide prevention for LGBTQ plus kids and youth.
Were there any suicides?
I really don't know all of that statistics. Yeah, I don't know. But I know that Trevor Project is really great at, I don't trust their statistics at all, because I have, added myself to their emails. I get their emails, and what they're doing is just completely ridiculous. Like, they'll send out these surveys, and then they'll base their statistics on these surveys. Well, I tested it out. I'm in my 50s. Mm-hmm. I took the survey myself. Yeah. I took it multiple times just to show that how easy it is for any special interest group to hijack this process and to get the outcomes that they want.
Yeah, to manipulate the polls.
Oh, totally. Yes.
So in your opinion, what's their end goal? What do they want to do?
Well, I think for one, they want to sterilize kids before they graduate, because when you get kids confused about their gender, And then you have the children's hospitals that are now working with our schools in the wellness centers, such as in Orange County, Chalk Hospital is partnering with our schools, and they have a gender clinic. And that's a whole other story. I know LA does. I know San Diego does. The Rady's Children's Hospital and the LA Children's Hospital, they're working with our schools. So I believe the end goal, there's a few of them, but one is because as a union member and an insider, as state delegate, actually, yeah, I still am. I'm an alternative right now because I do try to attend and have access to their documents so that I can alarm people and tell them what's really going on. I try to tell teachers, but a lot of them they're too afraid, or they just want their union to keep giving them raises. And so they want to just put their head in the sand. They don't want to get involved. And that's unfortunate because it's affecting their rights as parents, and it's affecting our society as a whole. So in 20...
Or we're going to feel the consequences in 20 years.
Oh.
We have to wait till those kids are going to grow up, till they're going to turn 30 to 40. They're
Absolutely.
going to be very angry.
Even now they're starting to become parents, and for the next generation. So in 2020, the California Teachers Association passed a business item saying that kids should have access to puberty blockers and hormone therapy without parent knowledge or consent because it provides equity. Their rationale was that kids can get birth control, and birth control are hormones. So since those are for cisgender kids, cisgender meaning heterosexuals, then, or kids that identify as their sex assigned at birth, as they call it, then we should have kids that are gender nonconforming also have those same rights to get their hormones.
Can the kids get a right to get testosterone, steroids? No, it's illegal. But those are hormones as well. So that's discrimination. If they're letting me to choose as a child, as a kid, to get access to a hormone, I should be able to get steroids. Why not?
Exactly. There's a lot of double standards, So this isn't law yet, but it is in process. I mean, we're getting there. And usually when the union passes a business item, their end goal is to create a law with it. Yes, absolutely. So that's where it's going.
So sterilization.
Sterilization is definitely one. I've looked at like the Planned Parenthood A through Z glossary. Planned Parenthood is also in our wellness centers, working also with the children's hospitals. And their glossary is unbelievable. They have words, they're normalizing words like eunuch, like chemical and physical castration. They basically make it sound like it's a method to remove gender dysphoria, to decrease suicide in kids with gender dysphoria, chemical and physical castration.
How does a penis cause a sense of taking your life?
Because they're saying your body is not aligned with who you identify with psychologically. So they want to align those two together.
But sterilization means less population of the U.S., right? So they basically hate the Americans? Why do they do that?
I think
there has to be a reason.
The whole climate change, even though I'm not an expert on climate change, that whole thing, if you notice, those things all go together because the climate change is basically, we're just, the population, it's destroying our planet. The amount of trash that the carbon dioxide that we produce and all these things, we're destroying our own planet. So it's like, well, we got to reduce the population in order to save the planet.
How about China or India? Both countries combined almost 3 billion people, right?
Yeah, I totally with you on that. But this is how I am reading their rationale.
Let's get back to the books that you have right here. So these are not the most harsh books that I've seen. So I've watched this movie by Jana Manchukwu. He made this movie called 22 Words. So he is the pastor that fights with the libraries, school libraries, to get those perverted books out of school system. And it showed those books where it just shows visually, it's written in the text, how, for instance, how a boy, a 10-year-old, can do a blowjob to another 10-year-old.
Yes.
So these are the books are in the school library.
Correct,
And
it is.
all kids have access to those books?
It's very interesting because so we have physical libraries in most of our schools, right? However, we not only have physical libraries, and parents can find out what's in those libraries typically, especially teachers can. In our school district, we have what we call a destiny database. So you can go in and just punch in maybe LGBTQ or gay or whatever, or gender identity. And then all those books related to that topic will come up in the Destiny database. However, we have something called SORA, SORA. And this is where, if you remember during the COVID lockdown, there was this big thing about internet equity, right? So we were saying that, not all kids have access to the internet, so they're not getting the online classes because they don't have access to the internet, or maybe they don't have a Chromebook, or they don't have a laptop or whatever. So we need to, in the name of equity, make sure all kids have access to internet, no matter where they live in California, or no matter what their socioeconomic situation is. So that was established pretty well during COVID. So these Chromebooks now, if you think about it, like Trevor Space that I just explained to you, this can be accessed through kids' laptops, school provided laptops, okay? And also Sora, which is a library database that's huge. Kids can get all of the books through Sora. They don't have to go into a physical library. And what's going on with this, and I'm still learning more about Sora, but what I'm seeing, there's a lot of, like, we call accelerated reader, okay, in order to help with literacy. I'm seeing these young adult content books, which is basically adult X-rated types of material, right?
Pornography.
Yes, pornography, flat out. That says, 5th grade reading level, 7th grade reading level. Okay, so here we are teaching literacy and reading through accelerated readers through pornography. It's unbelievable. There is one book that is big because you've heard of the Banned Book Week, right? So the teachers union is really, these people trying to burn books or ban books, how dare they censor books, and they really give a false narrative about it as though we're trying to remove the classics. That is far from the truth. And how they do that is it may have been maybe something that was maybe 40, 50 years ago. They thought, we should take this book out. And they'll use that from a book that somebody's tried to get out maybe 40 or 50 years ago and use that as being one of the banned books, which is far from the truth, like Huckleberry Finn or something like that. Nobody's trying to ban Huckleberry Finn today, right? Or even Alice in Wonderland. So here's a book that I use this book because it pretty much shows that they are literally throwing our kids to the wolves, especially the kids who are identifying as LGBTQ+. Those are the kids that are being thrown to the wolves. Those are the kids at the highest risk of exploitation. So my story about this book, I don't know if you can see it or how I need to tilt it.
Yeah.
Okay. Is last fall, 2023, we had the public library called the Bookmobile. It's like a portable library. They go to our parks, they go to our zoo, they go to our schools. And in front of this beautiful van, they have a comic astronaut. So it's very attractive to kids. And it's called the Knowledge Mobile. Okay. And then, so they came to my school and they put these portable, bookshelves on the playground for kids to peruse. And I was on my break, so I kind of checked it out. This is kindergarten through 5th grade. I found this book. See here, it's labeled young adult. And I'm like, why is this on an elementary playground? And when I look in it here, I find, so you will see that it says how to use sex apps. It tells kids, this is what it says, step by step. Number 1, upload a tiny picture of yourself to the app. Number 2, the app works out your location. Number 3, the app tells you who the nearest homosexuals are.
Who?
Number 4.
Homosexuals?
Yes.
Why homosexuals? Why not?
Because this book, the name of the book is This Book is Gay. So it's how to hook up. How to hook up with homosexuals, it says. Number 4, you then chat with them. Number 5, because they are near, it's easy to meet up with them. Now, I did even the National Public Radio, I Googled it, and they are doing pieces about this app called Grindr that they're recommending to kids, saying that there's date rapes, there's the highest exploitation of going on because they never identify their age, and how easy. You could be a victim of human trafficking, of kidnapping, sextortion, whatever. It's horrific. And then I took this to my district. I first took it to the public library director. I said, why is this in the Knowledge Mobile? And he said, I'm getting pressured by commissioners and politicians.
To get this book on this?
To me, that's like, okay, we've got some pedophile rings going on in the high ups. What's going on here? Then I went to my union and I said, we got to get these books out. Part of our mission statement is that we will create a safe place for students when they come to school. This isn't safe. And my union said, we don't get involved in that. And then I found out that my union is actually the one pushing this into our schools. The National Educators Association, the California Teachers Association, this is on the banned book list. This is one of the books that they're telling kids, read a banned book week. This is one of the banned books. And then going into the Destiny database for my school district, found out that this was in one of my middle schools and in 4 of the high schools where I teach in my district. But in Sora, any kid can get it.
What is this book about? It's a thick book.
Well, this book is about basically how to give gay sex favors, the ins and outs of gay sex. Okay, but the interesting thing about it is it says it's young adult, but yet all the words are very childish. Like for human anatomy, they use like willy and poopsie and things that you wouldn't think an adult would use those words.
It's very easy to read.
Oh, yes, it's on a 5th grade reading level. Maybe 7th grade reading level. Very easy reading. Plenty of graphics in here as well. There's one description of where they show a teenager in a guitar shop and has the teenage boy seducing a married man. And then they participate in foreplay. That's in the book. So they're basically teaching kids how to do these things and how to provide sexual favors.
So just because I'm from Lithuania, which was former USSR, my native language is Russian, right? So since I know Russian, I can watch, and I do watch a lot of content in Russian, right? So I know what happens in Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, Kazakhstan because of the USSR and because they all share the common language, which is Russian, right? This is not a common thing back there at all. This is not a common thing in Lithuania, I wouldn't say in Poland. This is the thing here in the US. Why?
That's a very good question. I believe that, let me just back up a second to the framework. There's one thing that I saw in the health framework that was a huge red flag. Now, I'm a person of faith. I'm a Christian. And they coined the term spiritual abuse. And the word spiritual abuse was defined as using religion to justify rigid gender roles, such as binary male and female. So basically, abuse isn't just physical abuse or neglect. Now it becomes that if you don't affirm all these various genders or sexualities, you are labeled an abusive parent. So if your child comes out as any of these sexualities or any of these, like they have pansexual, all kinds of sexual, polysexual. It's not just gay and lesbian. That's just vanilla, really. We've got like Baskin-Robbins 31 flavors going on.
So yesterday I did a podcast, just to interrupt you for a second, and I went to Wikipedia, and there are lots of genders, and one of the genders is, you will never believe me, but it says gender fuck. There is a gender like that.
I wouldn't doubt it.
One word.
And actually, I could send you a document that came from San Francisco because they were giving, they have this transgender village, and they were giving incentives where if you, I think it was $1,800 a month, you could get if you just participated in their monthly surveys. And you had to fill out an application, and I can send you the application. It had 98 genders listed. And I think it was 35 sexualities. BDSM was one of the sexualities. Bondage and dominance?
Sexuality, yeah.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
you can be attracted to girls, women, men, and BDSM. Next step is definitely MAP, a pedophile.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. I mean, anything goes. So, you know, I remember back when I was watching the movie Frozen. Mm-hmm. And I had to listen to all the songs all the time because I'm an elementary teacher and I hear the kids singing these songs. And I started listening very carefully because the song Let It Go, mm-hmm. there's a phrase in that song that says, no right, no wrong, no rules for me, I'm free. And to me, that encapsulated everything because it's like they are now telling kids that the definition of freedom is there's no boundaries. But anything goes.
But that's from Satanist playbook.
Absolutely.
Do as thou wilt.
Yes.
Do what you want. Be
absolutely.
What you want.
And all of these things, when it comes to families of faith who believe in a strong family, whether you're a Christian, an Orthodox Jew, a Muslim, a Catholic, right? We believe God created male and female, whether it's from the Quran, the Book of Mormon, yes. the Bible, the Torah, right? So these families of strong faith who have convictions and a backbone, they will be demonized, and they're weaponizing our children against the parents, mm-hmm. and turning them against them to where, and the kids can self-emancipate, basically saying at school, oh, my parents aren't going along with this, I don't feel safe at home. Oh, well, we'll call the foster care and CPS, and here you go. You'll be gone. You'll be gone. The parents will never see you again.
They can emancipate from the age 12?
Well, they can go into foster care at that age. And I think they can emancipate at age 16. But the state will take care of them.
What if a 10-year-old says this? That his parents don't align with his gender and sexuality?
Yes, I believe that they could do that. Absolutely.
So once I got... Before I was living in the US, I was watching the European news stations, watching the news, the TV channels back in Lithuania, from the UK, France, etc. So everything, the rhetoric was towards the US is that the United States of America, especially in 2020, are very blue, Democrats, right? Very secular, very progressive. Once I got to the US, I found out that US is very red, Republican, very God-fearing country, and very conservative. So I would...
In LA?
Even in LA.
Wow.
We went to 3 to 4 different churches in 18 months here, and all those churches were packed. They're packed. 9 a.m., 11 a.m., it doesn't matter. Lots of Christians, so because we're Christians, right?
Yes.
So Lithuania and I want to say the whole Europe, they're Catholics, most of them. But they're not as God-fearing as the U.S. is at all. The churches are not packed.
Wow.
Yes, but still at the same time, you have here a lot of Christians, Muslims, all Jewish people, etc. But at the same time, you have this crazy movement with basically pedophilia.
Yes. Why? Well, I don't know.
I bet this isn't the thing. I bet this isn't the thing in China.
Oh, no. I think it's an attack on us, and it's coming through the Democratic Party. It feels like because the union pretty much aligns itself with the Democratic Party, with all of who they endorse for leadership and the laws and policies. We have a very strong LGBTQ caucus in Sacramento and also in the teachers union, and they work together with the governor and Sacramento. So I believe it's a way of just stripping. It's the Marxist, like you said, the playbook, to destroy the family and definitely to destroy religion. I will tell you that when I was a board member back in 2019, right before the pandemic, very interesting because this was in December. So what happened was they had a performance, and it was the Beatles song, not Let It Be. What is it? Imagine.
I don't like Beatles, so I don't know.
Do you know that song?
No.
Well, basically, Imagine is the song that says, imagine no countries, imagine no heaven, no hell, imagine no religion. What a peaceful, wonderful world this would be. Okay? So that's the message. So they had that performed to all the board members. Then they passed out these free books to the board members. That was a Imagine book with all the lyrics in it. That was for kindergarten through second graders. And I'm like, wow, this is coincidental or what? That they're really stressing this song, Imagine, which is basically, one world.
One nation,
globalism.
One country, one currency,
yes.
One world order.
Yes.
That's what they're trying to do.
Yes, and we had Michio Kaku, who is our keynote speaker. He is from New York. He's considered a futurologist and also a physicist. And I thought it was interesting that he was our keynote speaker because he wrote a book called The Future of Humanity. And he did a book signing after he spoke. And he was very entertaining, talking about how in the future, it sounded like the Jetsons on steroids, right? But he talked about how we'll be able to read each other's minds, have telepathy, have our cell phones coming through. I don't know. He had all these things, right? But it was like over most of our heads. But during the COVID, I bought his book and I read his book and I was like, there's a big section in there about transhumanism and a lot about like how nanotechnology, vaccines and how that all plays together. It was very interesting. So I'm thinking...
And he's an atheist, right?
He says he's agnostic. His book right after The Future of Humanity was called The God Equation, which basically said how it was debunking religion in many ways, how they said, oh, well, they were persecuted because, they said that the earth was flat, right? And we said that was wrong. And now they say this, and they're always against progress, basically.
Christians.
Religion. In general, how they're non-progressives.
How about the culture? All the culture that Christianity bring. So take a look at Michelangelo, right? His famous, how do you call it, frescoes, right? It's amazing. No one can replicate that even in 500 years. He was a genius. He was doing this because he loved God.
But yet they're changing history. They're changing history to make it to where people of faith are looked down upon as people that are oppressors. Okay, colonizers. And that's where the critical race theory comes in, that they're saying that, they came as missionaries or whatever, and they stripped the people of their indigenous ways and cultures in order to bring in and dominate their Christian values and push that on other people. So we need to strip that away and bring back the different types of cultures. And that can be the Aztecs. That can be, think about some of these. There were some barbaric cultures, right?
Yeah, horrific.
But they are literally glorifying. As long as it's an indigenous culture, no matter if it's barbaric or not, it's considered authentic.
But they were the original DEI. The ones that came here with Christopher Columbus, right? They wanted the equity. They wanted the diversity here in the U.S. So you got the DEI. What's wrong with that?
Yes.
Let's go to indoctrination. So any other examples how kids are getting indoctrinated in school?
So this critical race theory. So right now, my school district, Santa Ana Unified, is actually being sued for anti-Semitism, okay, because they're basically calling Jews, colonizers and white supremacists and nationalists and all these things.
Jews, white supremacists?
Can you believe that? I know, oppressors. The Jews.
And what did they colonize? The Jews?
I don't know. I'd like to know.
Okay.
It's crazy. I guess we just forget all about the Holocaust and we forget about, hey, what about the 400 years when they were slaves in Egypt, right? So the critical race theory, how it wraps into all this gender and sexualizing is that what I saw is, like, for instance, when I looked at the ethnic studies framework, they are equating skin color with genders and sexualities. So that's why they say that if you don't agree with all these genders, that you're racist. But they totally changed their words. Right now, at first they say because it's inborn, like race is inborn, you can't change it. But now they're changing that wording, and now they're calling it a choice. As you saw in this book.
You can choose to be black, white, or Asian?
No, that I'm saying that first they were equating all these genders with skin color because they're saying you can't choose it, right? You can't. You're just born. However you feel, you are. That's what you are.
Yes.
Right.
But, you can
if you maybe feel that you're neither gender, or maybe you're a boy trapped in a girl's body, right, like that. So that way they could call you racist because a person can't help how they feel in their authentic self. But then they change the words here in this book and says you can choose.
You're gender fluid.
Yeah, and you can choose your gender. So they talk out of two sides of their mouth all the time. But this is how this critical race theory is very... it's blackmailing our kids because that's why they're afraid of saying they're against anything like this because they're afraid of being called a racist
Kids.
or a bigot. Oh, yes. Absolutely. They don't want to be called a bigot and a racist and a homophobe and a transphobe.
By a teacher?
And their peers. Because they're being taught, like, a lot of these teachings don't just come in through sex education or even through history of critical race theory. It can come in through anti-bullying lesson in a first grader, okay? It can come in through diversity or family, that kind of thing. It's not just, or maybe for a middle school, it might be for suicide prevention or mental health.
So if you're bullying someone and it happens to be that he was black and gay, so you're racist and homophobe.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
What do parents say when they hear that this is kind of an indoctrination you're having in the school?
Parents are blindsided, but I think there's a lot more eyes getting open now because now that I'm running for school board, I'm going door to door, I'm talking to people, I'm talking in churches, and I think especially since Newsom passed that law that mandated schools to lie to parents based on a child's gender identity, that opened a lot of people's eyes. And so they're like, wow, this really is happening. This isn't just, because a lot of times when I would bring this up to parents, they would say, oh, but that's not happening in my school because I know the teacher. But a lot of times, I mean, like, think about it. These things can be happening without even teachers knowing about it. Why? Because what teachers know about the Trevor project, Trevor Space? They don't know what's going on behind Trevor Space. They just trust, oh, it's a suicide hotline. They don't think that could be a chat spice, right? Or all the books. Teachers don't have time to read all these books in the libraries.
Of course.
They just have the kids check it out, and there's a trust. Oh, we trust that these books have been vetted correctly to be age appropriate.
That's how kids trust their teachers and their parents.
Yeah.
Teachers told me to read the book.
Right.
So they do. Okay.
So there's a lot of deception going on, I think, even with teachers, and teachers need to get some of them need to get their eyes opened.
So you've been teaching for 25 years, right?
Well, actually since 1990, but I went on and off because we had kids, and I took off for years rearing our kids, and then I did a lot of part-time contracts. So, yes. But I've been full-time for the last 11 years.
Tell me what the differences that you see in the kids that were in the 90s to early 2000s to right now to 2020s.
Well, I'm seeing that these kids are starting to believe these things because they're being told it, and they have these new college student graduates who have now normalized it. And so it's just gradually it's coming in as being normalized. And even I talked to a 23-year-old yesterday, And he was asking me about that, and he's just very afraid of discriminating, against anybody. And so they're really been sold the goods.
He's a teacher.
No, he's not. He runs a business. And so he had a store.
To offend someone.
Of course, he's afraid he doesn't want to lose his business. Right? So, so I think that has been really ingrained, that of course we want to respect everyone. We do.
Yes.
Right? But that means also that it seems like people who of faith, those are the ones getting trampled. Because, we have to respect you and your beliefs, but I cannot say my beliefs. So let me give you an example. We had a training, an online training of non-discrimination and sexual harassment, right? And one of them, it just normalizes this term, sex assigned at birth. And I'm like, I don't believe, that goes against my religious beliefs. Like, I don't think sex is assigned by a person or a doctor or anybody. I believe it's ordained by my Creator. And that goes with the Declaration of Independence that says we have been endowed by our Creator with inalienable rights, right? Life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness.
Yes.
And so I actually filed a discrimination complaint against my district.
You're such a pain in the ass.
Oh, I really am.
Thank you for doing that.
But I really believe this whole sex assigned at birth is a crux. It is kind of like what they're standing on. And people of faith, we need to come against that, because sex is not assigned. If you assign sex, what's next? Is the government gonna assign race?
Who's the one who assigns that? Who's the one expert?
Exactly.
You do the test, right? X, XY, that's it.
Oh, right.
Trust the science. The science says that to us.
Yes.
2 genders, 2 chromosomes. Okay.
Right. So this whole thing about sex assigned at birth, I think that's bad news. Because I think next it can be, race assigned at birth. It could be family assigned at birth. Because here we have chosen family. That was one of the chat spaces, but I see chosen family in all of the LGBTQ books where they say, you have a chosen family, because if the family that you were born into, your biological family, doesn't affirm your gender or your sexuality, you have a right to choose your own family. And that's why I even see in California, we have these things called unicorn homes. Unicorn homes is if you're a kid who comes from your family isn't affirming your gender, you can say, I don't want to go to my back home because they're not affirming me, which means they're unsafe. So I want to go into a unicorn home. And these unicorn homes are for 13 to 24-year-olds.
They have nothing in common. 13 to 24-year-olds.
Yeah, they're saying they're for youth. Why are they mixing kids with adults? I find that very disturbing.
So what's the main difference between the kids in 1990s to 2000s and 2020s? More distracted, less distracted, more confused than ever?
Oh, I think because we don't have set right and wrong. And that is really the definition. When we are calling things, the definition of psychosis is that you lose touch, your behavior and your feelings and your thoughts lose touch with external reality.
Yes.
Right? So now we are normalizing psychoses because we're saying external reality doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter what type of body parts you have. What matters is how you perceive.
I feel like a cat.
Or what you feel. Sure. But think about that. If a kid says, I feel like I'm a bird and I want to identify as a bird, what are we going to tell them? Well, he's going to say, well, I have perceived wings, so I want to jump off the 20-foot building. Are we supposed to go along with that? And, say, okay, well, we are being accomplices to that child's death. We say we have a mental health crisis, but we are creating the problem.
On purpose.
I believe it's intentional.
Because you've got lots of problems here in the U.S., right? But but the government chose those problems to solve. They created it, and now they're solving it.
It seems that that's always the way it goes. They create the problem, and then they try to come and solve it. It's like the union comes. We just went through this collective bargaining battle of wanting to get a raise, and they come to the school district, which the district's in the red, but they say, oh, we need a raise. And because inflation. Well, who caused the inflation? The people that you put into office. Mm-hmm. So it's like this revolving door. It just keeps going round and round.
What would you say is the most woke state in the United States? California, Oregon, Washington?
I really don't know. What do you think?
I've been only living here in California, and everything that I hear from you or everything that I heard from Sonia Shaw or from Rebecca, I was like, what is going... I can fathom this. I'm talking to my peers in Lithuania, I'm talking to my parents, to my grandmother, which is 84 years old. She's like, what are you talking about? Genders? There are only two. No, Granny, 80-something, 90-something. Who are those people? I say, I don't know. I've never seen them. Maybe they identify as Z, tree. A tree? If there are two, there is a forest? What? What is that?
Right.
When did this all start?
Well, I think the laws go back pretty far. The laws go back, I'm thinking 2000, I don't know, I have to look, but maybe 13, 14. The California Healthy Youth Act was passed in 2015, and that's the first time because it was supposed to go into our schools 2016, and that's the first time where they started teaching about all these genders and sexualities. And in that law, they basically put a little loophole in there saying that, okay, it's only you. Usually for sex ed, you had to sign a permission slip, before your kid received it. But then they said, no opt-in, it's only opt-out. In other words, you have to sign to say, I don't want my kid to have it. They're going to have it. Yes. Automatically, you're going to get it unless you sign to not get it. But the only thing you don't get is the HIV prevention or the sex education. The gender identity parts and the sexual orientation, they say if that doesn't relate to sex ed, such as reproduction, you're going to get it anyways. You can't opt out of it because it has to do with discrimination or anti-bullying.
Is there an HIV/AIDS crisis here in the U.S.? Why do they teach the prevention of HIV? Why don't you teach Bible so kids would not have sex in the school?
Yes.
So
abstinence, yes.
What can parents do right now? So school board is elected, right?
Yes.
What are the positions that are not elected but assigned that influence the school system? None?
Oh, there's a lot of assigned positions within a school district. For instance, in my school district, we have a lot of new positions that are starting. One is the LGBT liaison.
What's that?
That means that she makes sure that all the teachers are trained in the laws that protect LGBT students and rights, and that also kids get trained, and that there are clubs available and resources available for LGBT students to prevent suicide and depression.
And that position is assigned by who?
I think probably the superintendent.
Superintendent is elected or assigned?
The superintendent is elected. Not elected by the people. The board, the school board, is the one that hires the superintendent. Okay, so they're the only one that the board hires, and then the superintendent is in charge of hiring the rest of the district staff.
So what parents
and their cabinet.
Basically, what parents can do is vote for the right candidates to school board.
Yes.
The school board is going to be responsible for the hire of a superintendent that is going to hire all other new positions, right?
Correct.
So the power is always in the hands of voters. Locally?
Yes, assuming that our voting is ethical and not fraudulent. Our voting system.
And it's every 4 years as well for school board?
For school board, yes.
So right now you run for Santa Ana School Board?
Yes.
And the 6 school board members? How many of them?
5.
5. And 1 president?
And the presidents rotate usually.
Every what?
I don't know how often. It's different for every school district.
So
Sometimes every year.
5 school board members, they listen to to the parents of students, and they do the decisions, right? That's how it is supposed to do.
It's supposed to be that way, but what we're finding is a lot of school board members are being controlled by special interest groups, and
Like what?
like the union, the teachers' union is a big one. Now they would say that some might also be controlled by maybe a school choice charter school agency, but I mean, I'm not funded by anybody. I do have different groups that are helping by this or by that, but it's not coming under me. I don't necessarily know who's doing what for me, but they might be helping me here or there. But I don't like to be controlled by any particular group because I like to be an independent thinker and do what I know is right for the parents and for parent rights. I haven't tried to schmooze or try to play the chameleon. I'm just being who I am, and it's like, if you want to elect me, you want to elect me. If you don't, I'm not trying to hide anything. So I am for school choice.
You've been a school member of school board since 2016 to 2020, right?
Correct.
One out of 5.
Yes, I was.
How many of other school board members were aligned with you?
We had a majority, so we were able to get a lot done. We were able to pass some really great charter schools.
For instance?
In that district. For the Orange County Classical Academy is a great charter that has been like a refuge to a lot of families in Orange County, and they have a waiting list that's a mile long because that was before a lot of the things were coming out about the critical race theory, the anti-police rhetoric, the union social justice agenda to create these political activists out of our kids. And so parents are wanting their kids out of that system. So there's been some alternatives, but we need more alternatives. And the Classical Academy is like a hill. It's put on through Hillsdale, so it's definitely got more of a traditional bent on like history, the Constitution, those kind of things.
So basically, when you run for a school board, you run a campaign, right?
Yes.
You raise money, you do advertising to get elected for 4 years. In 2020, you didn't get re-elected, or you didn't run at all for the re-election?
I didn't run again for re-election.
Why?
Because I actually moved, and I moved out of the boundary, and so that's why I didn't run again.
So you've mentioned before that critical race theory, anti-police.
Yes.
How many of those are those kind of rhetorics, and what is anti-police rhetoric?
Anti-police is basically saying that police are biased and racist, that they racially stereotype and like racial profiling, and it really makes police out to be the bad guys.
But do they bring any evidence how police is racist?
We even have some elementary books where it showed, how, and it's like, of course you're going to have things that happen, but to stereotype all police that way, that's putting an impression in kids' minds to distrust police and to see them as the bad guys. So that's when your agenda is to create lawlessness, then you want to make police impotent, right? The law enforcement, then you incentivize and you empower criminals.
Yes.
Right? Which we're doing with our laws. You can steal up to $950 without being penalized for it. So why should they even enforce when you've got security guards at the door, but they can't do anything? And if you go chasing after them, you're going to be the one put in jail for chasing the criminal and doing something to the criminal who just stole $900 out of your store.
That's reality?
Yes. I mean,
if you chase a criminal, you can get to prison?
Not necessarily chase them, but if you do something against them, like,
stop them.
Club them, stop them with clubs or something. Yeah, you could be the one criminalized.
So once you get this LGBTQ plus trans agenda in school, so Christians, they tend to do nothing, right? What about Muslims? Do you have a lot of Muslim kids in your school where you teach? How do
I
they
did at
react?
one school. Now, I have been working closely with the Muslims. It's kind of a funny story, but when I was a school board member and I was really studying what was coming from the California Department of Education as far as the curriculum and the policies, I was shocked because I was looking into these resources that they were recommending, and one of them, it'll come to me. I don't know why I can't think of it right off the bat. But anyways, this one resource basically was targeting Muslim kids, and it was telling kids that your gender, that you can be any gender. It said, I'm a different gender and I'm Muslim. I'm gay and I'm Muslim. So I read these articles. They had one in English and one in Arabic. Mm-hmm. And it basically said that the Quran and the Islamic prophets go along with all these genders and sexualities. And I'm like, are you kidding me?
And they did not get killed by that? But that's the sad reality, right? You can't mock Islam at all.
I mean, I was shocked. I'm like, they crossed a sacred line. Yes. This is a lie. I'm not Muslim, but I know this is a lie. So what I did is I took that information to my imam, the one that was close in Orange County, who is also an adjunct professor at Chapman University, and I showed him, and I said, I am a school board member and I represent Muslims as well. I want to be, I represent everybody. I don't want this to be going on behind your back. Mm-hmm. And he was, of course, angered by it, rightfully so. And so he got me in contact with other imams. And so I started talking in mosques in Orange County, showing them how specifically Muslim kids were being targeted. And I remember the name of the resource. It's called Advocates for Youth. Mm-hmm. Advocates for Youth. And this particular one, the California Department of Ed recommends it highly, but Advocates for Youth is the one that is really even paying kids to become social justice warriors and political activists, even for anti-police, how to defund the police and things like that. So, but anyways, back to the Muslims. And I was on many of their TV shows, many of their podcasts. They actually funded my first 5 videos back in 2016. No, wait, no, not, I can't read. The dates are all getting blurred. But I think it was maybe 2018 and 19. So, yeah. And I became pretty good friends with a lot of the leaders. In fact, one of the leaders was the former president of the Islamic University of California. And then one of them was the Southern California chairman for the Islamic Council. And we actually flew to Sacramento together because I asked him if he would speak on behalf of parent rights, because we tried to pass a law. I think it was Senate Bill 876. We tried to pass a law saying that for grades K through 6, there should be opt-in for sex education, mm-hmm. parent permission, yes. and that the curriculum should be transparent and on the website of every school district. But even though we brought in the Islamic Council chairman to speak to Sacramento senators, they still rejected us.
Tell me about the modern community of Muslims. So they let you speak at mosque?
They did, yes. And I even spoke on their, you could Google it, The Dean Show, which is, he's in Chicago, and it goes international. I was even getting calls from, like Iran and Qatar. And
really?
Yes, I was getting international phone calls from those shows.
So Christians, Jews, and Muslims have a common enemy, which is this indoctrination of children.
Absolutely, and we created a video about it together. I have some of the head rabbis, some Catholic lawyers. I have Chinese, Koreans. Have you seen it?
Yes.
Okay, so we came together and created this video, and I think it came at a very strategic time. It was definitely before, the Hamas, the Israel attack, and actually after that happened, we came together because I said we have to make a decision if we're going to stay together or not, because this is getting very difficult, right? And I was amazed, but all of them said, we want to stay together and just focus on this one issue and leave the other issues aside. We have differences, but for the sake of our families and our religious freedoms in this state, we must come together. Otherwise, we're all going to get obliterated.
Yeah, because you're all Americans. You live here. You're
exactly,
an American.
Yes.
Did you get any result? Did you achieve anything?
I think we have. We weren't able to pass that law, but we have sent our videos out and to many different groups. It has caused a lot more camaraderie in, making that bridge of unity. And it's actually empowered our voice, because we write letters to Sacramento, either opposing or affirming a law. Supporting a law.
Do they care, or they just read an email and they delete it?
Well, at least we have it on record that we supported or opposed a law. And it doesn't seem to make a difference because they're steamrolling everybody. I mean, even a law, if I remember the number, I think it was Senate Bill 1414 by Senator Shannon Grover, and it was basically saying she created a great law, a bill, saying to increase to make it a felony or worse if you buy or sell children for sex.
Yeah.
You would think that's a no-brainer. That's a no-brainer. They actually, Democrats and Republicans both agreed on that one, but the teachers union they wouldn't support it. The teachers union. And yet they supported the quote-unquote Safety Act that said we must deceive parents for a child's gender identity being changed at school.
So they passed that 1414 bill with the felony?
I believe they passed it, but they did amend it, and I'm not sure. It kind of diluted it quite a bit after they amended it. It wasn't as strong as I know the original one was.
What has to be done to get this nonsense out of school system at all? Is it possible?
That's a very good question. I'm running for school board. I know I can't change laws. I'm not under some delusional Messiah complex, right? But I do serve a mighty God, and I do have faith in the miraculous. And that's why I'm doing this, But what I know I can do is inform, and especially my community is quite socially conservative. Yes, it's mostly Democrat. It's mostly immigrant Hispanics, Catholics, and mostly Democrats. Typically Hispanics are Democrats, and so are Muslims. But a lot of them are seeing where this is going and how it's hurting their kids. And so what I'm trying to do is empower them with knowledge so that they can rise up and they can not be blindsided, and that they can be the ones to stand up for their kids.
So can it be changed at all? Can it be obliterated from the school system?
Well, I think one way it can be is if we bring in school choice. And I think there's 22 states that have already approved school choice. I know in California they say there's no hope for us to have school choice. We've tried it.
It doesn't matter where you live. You can choose a school out of the district, right?
School choice means you're given a certain amount of money, which could be about $14,000, which is what typically it costs, maybe more, a year per child. And rather than just saying, okay, that money's going to go to the school, it's going to, instead, that money follows the child. So that parent can choose whatever school they want to put their child in, whether it be a private school, a military school, home school, public school, charter school, wherever that parent decides to put that child. In other words, it's bringing capitalism back into education instead of it becoming one big monopoly, which our union has created a big fat monopoly that's failing our students. In my district, only 20% of the kids are meeting basic reading standards. Only 20%. 20%. Only 30% are meeting math proficiency in my district. That's a crisis.
That's Orange County.
That's in Orange County.
That's a great county.
Yes. But in my district, Santa Ana, that's how low our reading and math scores are.
What's the reason? What's the reason behind it? Would you say that's they're getting attention from maths and reading to LGBT, all that social justice stuff?
I think we're really diluting down our academics. We're diluting it down, and we're putting so many fillers in, fluff, that we are forgotten. I mean, we have forgotten our main purpose. It's like a bakery that says, well, we don't really want to serve, baked goods anymore. I guess our baked goods aren't working, so let's try to bring in something else, another product, So
you've been teaching since 1990. So the school program became softer and easier?
Yes, for instance, like when I looked at our scores, yet they said our graduation rates are increasing and going up. How do graduation rates go up when reading and math scores are going down? That's a deception. So we have equity grading. Equity grading means now our district they're trying to push this where you remove D's and F's. You remove D's and F's so nobody can fail.
ABC, that's it.
Right, equity grading. And it's just ridiculous. It's not based on merit. It's just based on everybody gets coddled. And I mean, I think it's really the way they want. The more you can dumb down a society, the more government can control their citizens, right? And they make them all dependent.
But it feels like, so I've read the stats that youngsters, especially men, they turn more conservative, and women, females, the vice versa, they're more liberal. So distinction between those two are getting bigger and bigger, the gap between those two. So at the same time, if students become more and more dumb just because the school system fails them, the media is dying. No one's watching the news, right? They're getting the news from the podcast like this.
A lot of the kids get it from Instagram and TikTok and all those things on their cell phones.
Is it allowed to have a cell phone at school? You can do it. You can use cell phone during the class?
It is now. I'm not sure that bill was passed about forbidding cell phones.
Do you think that's a great idea?
There's pros and cons. I mean, the cell phones are absolute distraction to academic, staying on task. Mm-hmm. However, I see the cell phones are a protection as well, because if you've got a teacher that's going off the rail and saying crazy things, they can film them and there can be accountability, and they don't want that accountability.
What's the reason behind not having cameras at every classroom so the parents could log in and watch what their kids are being taught?
Oh, that's a good idea. That's a great idea.
You want to say that I'm the first one that thought of this?
No, I don't hear it a lot. Has it been talked about a lot?
I don't know why it's not being done. I also have no idea why all schools that do not have police officers with guns protecting the kids. There have to be lots of police officers with guns because you have the shootings. Europe does not have this problem. You have this problem.
Right.
Why? So the mentality between the Europeans and the Americans, I wouldn't say that's a huge gap between them. Mm-hmm. The values are the same. The religion in general is the same, right? Christianity. But you have here this mental health crisis with all that stuff that you showed me in the books. You have this problem with the shootings, and Europe does not have this thing. Why? Learn from Europe in this aspect, right? Take the best from Europe and implement here. Just like Europeans try to take the best from America, like corporations, business, free market, and incorporate the same thing in Europe.
Right. I mean, and also the CASP research that was done, I might be saying the word wrong. Anyways, that research that was done where they said we are going to make it against the law for puberty blockers to be given to minors. Mm-hmm. That's already been passed in Europe, and yet we're still doing it here. And it's like, why? Why are we still pushing something that research is showing is harming minors? Yes, or research doesn't back it up.
UK blocked it, I want to say 2022, because they saw the study. So mm-hmm. it does more harm than it helps people. That's why they blocked it. Bravo. Right. That's amazing,
absolutely.
Right? But the same thing, you've got... So for a European mind to comprehend this, it's very hard, because we have the same products in the US and in European Union. For instance, cereals, right? 20 ingredients in the US, the same cereals have 10 ingredients in the European Union.
Wow.
Why? And they're fighting right now. So there is a whole group. Casey, Kelly Means, brother and sister, they're fighting this. Some others, they're boycotting the Kellogg's. They want to get the answers. Why? The same Fruit Loops, for instance, have 20 ingredients in the US and only 10 ingredients over there. Why does the fries from McDonald's have much more ingredients in the US than in Canada? Why? If you can make the same fries or cereals, you can make the same taste with the less ingredients. So it's cheaper, right? Mm-hmm. But you do more ingredients here. What's the reason? You have to get the answers because you're basically poisoning the kids. You're poisoning their minds with the books. You're poisoning their health with the food that they eat. And one more thing. So drag story queen hour? Drag queen story hour? That's a real thing in school?
Well, okay. They passed a law, and I don't know the exact year, but I know it was before COVID, about no discrimination on gender expression. When they did that, I was a board member, and I said, oh, gender expression. So what that means is that we will have drag queen kindergarten teachers, because drag queen is a gender expression. And the lawyer's answer to me at the California School Board Association conference was, yes, that's true.
Confirmed. Did you see any of those performances?
No, I've only seen them on YouTube, and
so that's why I'm asking. Whether
I haven't seen them in person.
But but I've seen the videos. They perform in front of the kids, 5-year-olds, 7-year-olds, 3-year-olds, and the biggest amaze to me is the parents.
I know.
They bring their kids, and they're sitting in the same classroom when this perverted man is dancing with the rainbows and telling some kind of stories. Get out of here. It's not your job.
Right.
Who are you?
They think that they are enlightened because they are
By
open. I would agree with you. They are enlightened and progressive, and yes.
What's the most evil thing right now?
Even I've seen those things in some of these Christian churches that say they're enlightened and welcoming.
Me?
Yes, there's been drag queen hour in some of the churches.
What kind of churches? Christian
Some
church?
of them have been Methodist, Presbyterian, Episcopalian, that are super liberal.
I can't fathom this. This is out of my. Okay, what do you think is? What would you say is the most evil thing right now that is happening in the school system? Indoctrination. What?
Well, the deception is huge. I think that the Trevor space, this whole suicide prevention, and how they are using this as a cover-up for something that I believe is using our schools as a pipeline to human trafficking. Because you've got Trevor space, you've got books like this teaching kids how to use adult sex apps that could cause them to be kidnapped. And you put all these things together, and then if you put together that a child, basically their inborn identity, which would be their gender, their name, their pronouns, could be erased at school without parent knowledge. If that child does come up missing, how is that parent going to find that child?
Oh, that's a good one. Rachel is missing. Who's Rachel?
Exactly.
It's Michael at school, right?
Yes. So you've completely erased that child's identity, and the parent didn't even know it. And now the child's gone, and you're not going to be able to find him.
Did you see gender dysphoria 20 to 30 years ago in schools amongst kids?
So, like, I have a article about myself, and I was a tomboy, and that's not uncommon.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be a boy. I fantasized about being a boy. I looked like a boy. I sounded like a boy. I would get kicked out of the girls' bathroom. That's how much I seemed like a boy. I played with boys. And
how long did it last?
Well, I mean, this was during my elementary years. I had super short hair. I wore motorcycle T-shirts. I wore suede jackets. My dad took me shopping because I like to go shopping with my dad. But it's that even though I had this enjoy, I liked doing all the boy stuff, I never fathomed that I was a boy. Because it was never affirmed to me. If I would have got these teachings, there would have been no doubt. No doubt that I am a boy trapped in a girl's body. There would be no doubt. It wasn't on the table for me. And my parents were no big deal. My parents didn't really play into it. They didn't think it was a big deal. Even though sometimes I'd come home crying from school saying that, I got kicked out of the girls' bathroom or that they called me a boy. I came home crying. So my mom would say, well, you need to dress more like a girl. It's your fault. So she'd go and buy me all these pink bows.
Such a bigot.
But you know what I mean? And then I'm like, but I don't like the pink bows. But I think, for me, it's like, and I think girls are a lot more susceptible to this, especially tomboys, because then when you find out about puberty and learn about puberty, it's just like, for me, as I remember, I was like 9 or 10, I was just like horrified. Like, that could not be my future. No. You know what I mean? And I had an older sister who was, always told me the bad things about, menstruation and stuff. So I would just think, oh no, that can't be my future. So as a kid, especially a girl, you could see how easily they could say, oh, you just take a little pill and it'll go away and then you'll be a boy? Cool.
You're not gonna get periods.
Right.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Cool. So it's just so playing into a child's imagination. And you think, for me, I watched Pinocchio, right? I thought, oh, Pinocchio became a real boy, right? So
yeah, but
for
not
me,
from the girl.
Right. But still, it's just like something turning into something else that wasn't before. But I think that, most kids, and research shows, just grow out of it in puberty. I did. I just grew out of it in puberty.
And you got kids.
And then
got grandkids now.
Oh my gosh, I was a cheerleader in high school. I never turned into a super girly girl, but I wasn't a tomboy anymore. And I just went through those stages of life. And I think about, wow, this is why I am so passionate about it. One reason is because I think, wow, that kid would have been me. No doubt it would have been me. And my parents, I could have been taken away from my parents because my parents were religious parents, and they would have never gone along with that. And my life would have been ruined. And I'm a parent now, I'm a grandparent, and those are the greatest joys of my life. And to think that we are ripping kids off of this is just, it's child abuse.
So let's say parents right now are watching this podcast and they're like desperate. What would you say they should do? What to do with all this? Okay,
well, definitely vote. Number 2, expose.
But you mean vote locally? School board?
Well, yes.
Get involved.
Yes, vote on every level. And if you're not sure who to vote for, you can I go to Nancy Picks. Just Google Nancy Picks. If you're a conservative, she does great vetting. And so I just kind of, if people that I don't know, I trust her. And I go with that voting guide. But there's a lot of voter guides out there that you can use because you can't know everybody. But definitely vote. There are definitely things you can do. It depends on, a lot of people are removing their kids from public education, and I would probably do that, and go to alternatives.
School, right? It's only in...
Well, it's in charter schools too. No, there are some private schools that are doing this as well. You have to really know your school. It depends on your personality. If your personality that, you're willing to get in there and to speak up, you can go to school site council meetings. You can ask questions. You can ask the principal questions, go to school board meetings. You need to
participate.
Yeah. And there are a lot of, it's Karen England has something that's a great tool. There's so many great tools out there now where you can actually just look up your school district and find out what books are in your school district.
She's amazing.
Yeah. If you haven't had her on already, have her on. Okay. But she'll tell you more. I think it's called the Kitchen Table Advocate.
Yes.
Okay.
Instagram.
And so I will say also, I don't know how much time we have, but I'm a special ed teacher. And I would really like to talk to the parents who have kids with special needs, they're especially being lied to, because when you go to an IEP meeting, an individual with education plan, they give you this stack of parent rights. It's about 30 pages. And they always tell you, oh, they haven't changed. Well, that is not true. The parent rights have changed. We are lying to our parents who have kids with special needs.
How?
Because in it's called procedural safeguards. It tells parents that your kid will not have any related services without your permission. The definition of a related service can be counseling. However, if a child says they think they're a different gender after reading these books, they can go see a counselor without the parent knowing it. And that gender can be affirmed. It doesn't matter if that kid has high-level autism, and I've seen it done. I've seen it happen.
I've heard, yeah.
Yes.
I read the article
Okay.
just recently.
Yes. It doesn't matter. And so there's a lot of kids on IEPs that are being transitioned at school, and parents have no idea.
They're more vulnerable.
They are way more vulnerable. And then there's also in the procedural safeguards, it says that you have the right to your children's records if you just, sign and say you want the right. No. Identity support plans, they won't give those to you. So you don't have the right to all their records. Parents in their IEP meetings, they need to say, oh, well, what about the identity support plans? Why aren't you informing the parents? All the special ed parents in that district, and you can be a strong advocate to say all the special ed parents in this district need to be informed. And that's what I want to do as a school board member, to make sure and pass a policy to say that they must all be informed at that IEP meeting that their rights have changed. And they no longer have these rights. Because once they find that out, there's going to be a revolt. And we need a revolt. We need a huge revolt. 1776 all over again.
That's violence. You can vote. Non-violent.
Well, we need,
just
yes.
show up and vote.
Yes. Well, I know I'm not advocating for violence, but I am advocating that these are our kids.
For change.
And we cannot let the state take over our kids.
Do you think when Newsom is going out in 2 years, something's going to change, or he's just the part of the machine, which is not going to stop?
Well, Tony Thurmond, the plan is for Tony Thurmond to take his place.
Really?
Who's the state superintendent. He's running for governor. Yes, and he's just another Newsom.
You think he's going to become a governor?
Well, I think the Democrats and the teachers union is going to support him. Mm-hmm. Oh, yes, absolutely. Do I think I don't know. I do not know.
So participate, take action, and vote.
Absolutely.
And
yes.
if you can, take your kids out of public school system.
Yes. And, we need the churches to rise up and to start alternatives and get creative, with some type of hybrid. I've seen a lot of churches doing the hybrid homeschool and then helping each other, And, okay, you're good with this area, you teach that. You're good with that area, you teach that. Just like the body of Christ. Everybody's good with something. Let's all bring it together and pull together for our families.
Mm-hmm. So, Brenda, I had a blast. Thank you for everything that you told me. And for the audience, I believe someone's going to lose their minds, especially if they hear and see that for the first time, because those books are soft books. Because I've seen some of the hard ones.
Yes, absolutely.
Those are like true pornography, but not in videos, but in pictures and in letters, texts. They describe everything that a boy can do it to another boy, or a boy can do it to another man. That's madness.
I mean, we have books in our school district that goes into very deep descriptions on incest.
What?
Yes. I mean, one of the books is called Push, and it's under African American Studies, believe it or not. I went to the NAACP and reported it, thinking that they would try to help get it out, because it really puts, I think, the black culture in a bad light.
Yes, what does incest have to do with African Americans?
Exactly.
That's racism.
Yes, I think so. But they wouldn't, the NAACP is all for this. They're for all of these books.
So this book is what? Just a story how a father basically rapes his son?
His daughter.
Daughter?
Mm-hmm. Very young daughter. And then, yes, I can't even stomach it.
If you're a normal person, you can't even read this, right?
Yes, I can't.
It's
It made me
impossible.
sick to my.
Yeah.
I really almost got physically sick in reading it.
So Brenda, the last question on my podcast is always the same. Let's have two assumptions with you. Assumption number one is the President of the United States of America is the most powerful human being on the planet, his position. The assumption number two is you become one. You become the President of the US. And once you do so, you've got this Secret Service at your disposal, and they tell you, congratulations, Mrs. President, we love you, we respect you. Now, since you're the president, you have all the answers in the world. You ask us, we give you an honest answer. What would be your first question?
Are our schools being used as a pipeline to human trafficking? Through the Trevor Project and through all of these systems in place right now.
Let's say they confirm. You as a president, would you expose it to the public?
Of course. Yes.
But lots of people are involved in this, right? A lot of people are involved. Maybe some very famous last names. You're not afraid of the chaos it can bring?
No. I've been trying to do it for a long time. I turned it into Homeland Security. I believe strongly that our schools are being used as a pipeline to human trafficking because of these things. And I think they're actually the kids that are most vulnerable are the kids identifying as LGBTQ. Those are the kids being thrown into human trafficking.
And more than 300,000 people, kids are missing, right? You don't know where they are.
Yes, correct.
Do you think people can handle the truth?
Yes.
So let's say you get the Epstein list or P. Diddy list right now. Would you expose it to the public?
Yes.
Without any hesitation?
Yes.
JFK files?
Yes.
9/11?
Yes.
Like everything, you would expose it.
I would.
So people can handle the truth.
Well, I don't know. I've been trying to expose things for a while. It feels to me like I've literally gone to everywhere. Like I've gone to the LA Times, Washington Post, everywhere I can go, I've taken this. And it feels like I spoke at the National Educators Association, and they let me speak, okay? But when I brought up the Trevor Project, the president, Becky Pringle, cut me off immediately. The Trevor Project is a sacred cow. You cannot touch it. And when I got it removed from my district, this is news. Getting the Trevor Project removed from 60 schools, the head LGBT suicide hotline, that should be news, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I went to EdSource, the chief editor of the top, journalism for education in California. He agreed it was news. But for some reason, they interviewed me and they did everything, but they never published.
They got a call. So the Trevor Project is the same as the Planned Parenthood, right? You can't even stand in front of Planned Parenthood. You're going to get arrested. People go to jail for years.
Planned Parenthood and
so
Trevor Project
secret.
are like the same. Yeah.
Would you say LGBTQIA++++ is a religion?
Oh, yes. It's full on indoctrination cult. I have faith in God, and that's my rock.
Amen.
That's my hope. I don't have all the answers, that's for sure. There's a lot of things I really have no idea. All I do is try to do the right thing, know the Word of God, be obedient to what I feel like the Lord is leading me, my husband, my family to do. And that's all I can do is be responsible for ourselves and trust God for the rest. Even running for school board, I have no idea what's going to happen. Even throwing my hat in the race, I thought, wow, I'm going straight into the lion's den. I don't know what kind of harassment. You've talked to Sonia Shaw. Mm-hmm. You've seen the kind of threats her family had. So it really scares people to even run, because they just want peace, right? But, we've really come to the place, though, where at least this is our generation. We've got to do our part, whatever that part is, and trust God for the rest.
Amen. Brenda, thank you for coming. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. God bless you. God bless all your children.
Too.
God bless all your grandchildren, your students.
Thank you.
And I hope that you succeed with your journey, just exposing those perverts and getting this lunacy out of school system across the U.S. and across the world, because the influence that the U.S. has on the entire globe, especially Europe, is like immense.
Yes.
If you fail here, the Europe is going to fail over there in a few years. Lithuania, my home country, a small country, is going to fail in 10 years. But it will happen. If you fail here, they're going to copycat this thing. But in 5 to 10 years, that's for sure. God bless you.
God bless you, Apollo. Thank you.
From the bottom of my heart, I would like to thank you for watching this whole episode. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't done that already. Leave a comment below and share this episode with your friends, peers, and loved ones. May God, Jesus Christ, bless you and your whole family.